Fatima.
Yes.
We're still here. This is like a surprise bonus episode because I feel a little bad that the episodes have been taking a little while to get out lately. Lots of stuff going on around here.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about our recent trip to Pittsburgh.
That's right.
City of Dreams.
Oh my goodness. Was it a trip?
Now, we went for several reasons, but for me, the trip was about two things.
Yes.
Zombies and Mr. Rogers.
Right, yeah.
And that shows you that I have more than one side, you know?
You have depth to you.
Yeah, I'm a complicated individual. You can't box me any certain way.
Nope.
So, Pittsburgh, of course, was the home city of Zombies.
Yeah.
And the home city of Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
So I said, listen, man, let's go there and explore both of these things. So when we say Pittsburgh, we don't necessarily mean like Pittsburgh itself, but surrounding areas, because Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead were both filmed partly in, but also around the Pittsburgh area.
Right.
So I said, since we're going to be down that way, let's visit some of these filming locations and, you know, have a grand time and just see what we can see what's different, what's the same, what's the deal. Be able to say forever that we've been there when we watch those movies or whatever.
That's right. And
we started by you watching the movies. I think you had seen Night of the Living Dead.
I had, yes.
But then we just to be safe, we recently rewatched them all.
Right.
And you liked, well, I shouldn't say all, because we watched the original 3, which is Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead.
Right.
We didn't get into City of the Dead, Land of the Dead, all that stuff.
No, not yet.
What are your thoughts on those 3?
Well, I mean, obviously the first one is iconic because it's the first one. But my favorite is Dawn. That's the one that takes place in the mall.
Yes.
Right? Okay, yeah. For some reason, I really enjoyed that one.
You know, a lot of people say that's the best one. I agree with you in a sense. Although the first one does have a special place in my heart.
Right,
too.
Sure.
But, and I actually didn't like Day of the Dead when it first came, well, not when it first came out because I was like a child, but when I first watched it, when I was like a teenager or whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that one, like there were some really cool like effects and everything, but I was like, that one's different than the other ones. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
But having watched it again recently, I have a better appreciation for it now than I did then. So it actually is a good movie.
It is.
But I still agree with you that I think probably part 2 is my favorite because it has legit horror, but it also has like a lot of comedy to it. And I think it's an idea that we can relate to, like if the end of the world is coming.
Right.
And there's monsters out to get you and you've got to barricade yourself somewhere.
What better place?
Yeah.
In this huge mall. You have everything there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Including like the Burger Shack of Love or something like that. There's some burger place with a weird name like that.
Yeah, there were a lot of places with weird names.
Which sadly, it was real at the time. That was a real restaurant, but it's not there anymore.
Right.
And we know because our first stop was the Monroeville Mall.
I know.
In Monroeville, Pennsylvania.
So cool.
And
it's still there.
It's still there. We went there before we went to the hotel or anything. We just drove up there. So this was like a good 9 hours after we started out.
It was a long drive.
Yeah. Well, now we got to walk around the mall and stretch our feet out.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's websites out there that tell you like where you can find certain locations that were used in the film, but the whole mall was really used in the film. And the shape of the mall hasn't really changed, I guess.
Right. I mean, obviously the inside has changed, but
it has changed, but it's still like the balconies are still the same balconies, and like
the structure is still the same. Sure.
And the stores are different, except there is still the Pennies, J.C. Penney's, and Macy's or whatever stores were in there. So there's a couple of those that you can find.
Right.
And in fact, we entered the mall through JCPenney's, I think.
Yeah, I think we did.
So that was cool, and I took pictures right away, which of course I'll post a couple on Instagram and even more on the Patreon, patreon.com/witchfinder. Yeah, so the mall itself is a mall.
It's a mall.
And you can go and find certain things that were in the movie. There's like a bridge that they cross over. The fountain is long gone. The like famous escalators that are used in the movie are not. They were in Macy's, I think, and they were torn down. They're actually still like renovating them. It looks like, because there's plastic up all around and everything. It wasn't even like a good picture. But they also they have like little signage about Dawn of the Dead, and there's a bust of George Romero, the director and creator, creator of like zombies as we know them today, basically.
Right.
And also, the coolest part about it is there's a Living Dead museum.
I know. It was really cool.
Yeah. And this, they have a gift shop right up front, which is cool, and I spent a lot of money there. If you go to the Patreon and you join Patreon, there's the video where I show you all the stuff that I bought from the Living Dead Museum. And we don't have any kind of sweetheart deal with them. They didn't pay us. They don't even know we're talking about them right now. We just went as guests. We paid our price to walk in and walked around and everything. And the beginning of the museum is legit like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead. But then after that, it kind of just breaks down into like zombies in general.
Right, yeah.
Then there's a whole big section on the Evil Dead. And there's like original, like this is the door from the cabin and this is the window frame from the cabin. And it's cool to see. But when we were walking in, there was like a very precocious child walking out. And he was like, actually, I have a question because, there you have Evil Dead stuff in there, and I don't understand why that is in the zombie museum. And the kid, he's like, I don't believe it was filmed around here even. And like, do you remember?
I do remember
his exact quotes. That might not be his exact voice, but
I don't think that was his voice. But yes, he knew a lot about zombies. And
yeah, that kid was probably cool.
Yeah. He was making it known.
Yeah. And I kind of missed the response. The guy at the entrance wasn't like the owner or anything. He was just a guy that worked there. Right. So I don't know. He said something like, "Well, it's just kind of for horror movies,
Right.
So we went through and then I was thinking about it because I'm like, well, Evil Dead. They are people who theoretically die and then come back to life. They're called Deadites, but they're demons. They're like possessed by demons. So it's like they're not like zombies in a traditional sense, but if you need to stretch it, they could be zombies. But I think the person who owns this place is just a horror movie fan.
Right.
And so like he's got stuff to show off, so you're going to show it off.
Sure.
If you have like large set pieces from Evil Dead and you own a museum, and it's horror related, even if it's not exactly like...
And it was a whole room essentially dedicated to Evil Dead, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a room next to it that had like an airplane cabin from, was it Mindhunter? I think it was. So it's not 100% all on theme, but most of it is. It's mostly zombie stuff. There's a large selection from Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and probably Day of the Dead too, I don't know. And other Romero movies, but then also just other horror movies in general. So it's cool, and it's cool that it's in the mall.
Yeah.
From Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a good way to start the adventure.
Yeah. And we did go to the Heinz Center where they have the Mr. Rogers section, and you can take pictures with the sets and everything. We totally by chance bumped into David Newell, a.k.a. Mr. McFeely from Mr. Rogers. He wasn't even at that museum. We met him at the Warhol Museum, actually.
Right.
And
so
I was
random.
like, I think that's Mr. McFeely. And we were waiting for our Uber, and I said, well, listen, time's a wasted and life is short. I got to go find out if this is Mr. McFeely. And it was.
It was. You heard his voice from across the way, and you knew it was him. I mean,
we were a couple tables away. It was because he kept talking about, he said, I wasn't eavesdropping, but I overheard him. And he said, blah, 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 when we made the show, blah, 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 the costume department, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of perked my ears because I was like, oh, I wonder what costume department he's talking about.
Right.
And then he's like, Fred, blah, 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 blah. and Mr. McFeely, blah, blah, blah. And he said Mr. McFeely like a few times. And that's why I was like, I think that's Mr. McFeely.
I was not listening.
I think he's talking about the show because he was on the show. He's Mr. McFeely. So I was, I apologized for being rude because he was talking to these like two young people.
Right.
I was like, but like, are you Mr. McFeely? And he was like,
but
yeah.
Can
I'm
I
Mr.
just
McFeely.
get in on this? Are
Yeah.
you?
And they were all very nice. But
They were very nice.
But as the
yes.
people he was talking, and I apologized, and I was like, oh, I'm sorry, like, but thank you for being nice. And the guy was like, well, we're Mr. Rogers people, so it's kind of like,
Right.
we have to be nice. And I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, man, right
It's
on.
part of the thing.
So again, just to show you, I got more than, I'm still spooky, but
You have
I'm
layers,
not,
man.
yeah,
Layers.
I'm an onion. So our Uber was rather upset with us because we were a little late getting out there because we were busy talking to Mr. McFeely, exchanging emails and addresses and everything. But yeah,
Right.
he was super, super, super nice.
He was very nice.
And so were the people whose conversation I interrupted. So thank you
Yes.
to them.
Mhm.
And they were also just fans who apparently emailed him and he
Yeah.
was like, "Yeah, I'll meet you when you come to Pittsburgh."
I'll meet you at the Andy Warhol Museum. Random.
Yeah, and we were like, we're going to the Mr. Rogers exhibit right now. Like it was
Yeah.
crazy. It was a crazy timing thing.
It was.
I don't really believe in the supernatural, but that might have been a gift from Mr. Rogers himself to like put us all in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
So we went to the Mr. Rogers thing, and I'll post some pictures from Patreon of that too, I guess, even though it's not spooky.
Right.
And then on our way out back to Boston,
Yeah.
we drove up to Evans City,
Mm.
which I always want to call Evansville for some reason, but it's, I guess, because of Monroeville. I don't know, but it's Evans City.
Are you? Oh, it's not Evansville? Because there was a ville at the end of like every town.
Now you're making me question it, but I'm
Uh-oh.
almost certain. Well, we took our time and researched it, and it turns out I was right.
Yep.
It's Evans City.
Evans City.
But yeah, the drive there, this is kind of boonyish. Now, we come from Massachusetts, and we come from the eastern part of Massachusetts,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty populous. And even like our boony towns are still like pretty towny,
Yeah. Right.
You go out Western Mass,
Right.
not the same story.
Right.
Well, a lot of Pennsylvania looks like Western Massachusetts.
Booney.
Yeah, it's pretty boony. But you can, like, when you watch, we came home and immediately watched Night of the Living Dead, and it really looks the same.
Oh yeah.
Like the drive in there and everything, like, looks
Definitely.
the same.
Yeah.
And then the cemetery itself looks almost exactly the same as it does in the movie. That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
We visited the same graves that Barbara visits, and the zombie attack.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to take some fun pictures with Fatima reenacting the zombie attack, but apparently at some point, because when I go to these places, I tend to pick up little twigs and like stuff that have fallen on the ground as like little free mementos,
Yeah.
always with the plan to like make something out of them, which so far has never happened, but it's always my plan. But I had like a bunch of inchworms on me.
Mm.
And Fatima, I didn't even notice them, and it wasn't just like one or two. Like there was a bunch of inchworms. I must have rubbed up against something.
Oh, so gross.
Yeah. So Fatima was very unhappy about that.
I was done after that.
And I know that Fatima tolerates going to these things, like when we do these road trips. But I also know that she's not necessarily like all about it, like the way I am. She's like, fine, we'll go. That's fine.
I'm a good sport.
Yeah. But so
Most
like
of the
I was
time.
like, well, I'm not going to push my luck here and be like, all right, you act like I'm a zombie chasing you and we'll take a picture.
I was not feeling acting like a zombie.
I didn't even bring it up. Those were just thoughts that I
No,
had
I
in
feel
my
like
head.
I knew that's what you wanted, but I was not. I
Well,
was.
She had a look on her face,
cooperating.
so that's why there's no fun pictures like that. It's just pictures of me in a cemetery, but
Those are
okay,
still
it's
very
okay.
nice pictures, though.
They came out nice.
Yes.
I was wearing my Pittsburgh Zombie Capital of the World
Yes,
shirt.
newly acquired.
Now that's a place that has the right to claim to be a capital of something, zombies in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I bought it in Monroeville, not Pittsburgh, but
Right.
still, close
Yeah.
enough.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, because George Romero, like we said earlier, he really did invent the modern idea of what a zombie is.
Right.
And from Pittsburgh, filmed in and around Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So Pittsburgh definitely has the right to that title.
Right.
You know, it's the ground zero of zombies.
Yeah.
So it was cool to check out.
Very
And
cool.
of course, zombies are huge now. Zombies are everywhere. There's been so many zombie movies, but it all really comes... I mean, of course, there were zombie movies in name before Night of the Living Dead.
Mm.
But they weren't zombies the way we think of them now.
Right.
And I already did a whole episode about that called Zombie 101
Okay.
with my friend Scott Lamonde.
Oh,
So
cool.
you can go back and listen to that episode. We won't get into it here.
Nice.
But yeah, so just to know that, like, this is where it all happened. You know me, I'm a big history buff.
Mm-hmm.
But my sense of what is history is very wide-ranging. So
Right.
yes, I love Salem and I love the historic stuff there. I love going to Concord, Massachusetts, and, you know, for Revolution and all that stuff. I love those kind of sites. But to
Mhm.
me, the Evans City Cemetery is also sacred historic ground.
That's right.
And so is the Monroeville Mall. you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
So I understand that there are different tiers maybe that they're on of historical significance. But for someone who's passionate about horror, like myself, and zombies, these are important places.
It was really cool to see, most definitely. And so if you're ever in the Pittsburgh area, check it out.
And even Fatima, who, like I said, like, maybe this wasn't like left to her own devices, she probably wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm going to go to the cemetery where they film my living dead. But when we got back and watched the movie,
Right.
you were like, we were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
is
you
pretty
get it
cool.
at least a little bit.
I sure do. Listen, if I didn't get it at all, then I wouldn't have been there.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get some of it.
I do think that the funny thing about Pittsburgh is just anytime you tell anyone you're going to Pittsburgh, they're like, oh,
Right.
why?
We got so many questions as to why we were going to Pittsburgh. Out of all the places you could go to, why Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Well, we had
Zombies.
things to do.
Mr. Rogers,
Yeah.
Andy Warhol,
Yeah.
Roberto Clemente.
That's right.
Yeah, so... And by the way, just if you're in Pittsburgh, check out the Roberto Clemente Museum, even if you're not into baseball.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting place, and the people who run it are very passionate. People who work there are very passionate about it, and I think you'll have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Pittsburgh. We were only there for a brief time.
Yeah, we were there for a very short time, but we fit in a lot.
We did. And, you know, who knows? Maybe we'll end up back there someday.
I think we will one day, someday.
And people will be like, wait, you're going to Pittsburgh again? Like, even people from Pittsburgh were like, why are you going to Pittsburgh? You mean Philadelphia? No, Pittsburgh. Well, you can't go to both, really, because they're on separate
Oh,
sides
yeah,
of
no,
the
they're
state.
nowhere near each other.
No, we're just going to Pittsburgh.
It's just Pittsburgh. That's where we're going, Pittsburgh. Yeah.
But Pittsburgh, listen, don't be down on yourselves. You guys got some good stuff down there. You guys got
I
it
loved
going
the
on.
bridges.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a really, really cool little city.
Yeah, you got a self-esteem problem.
Who does?
Pittsburgh.
How do you know that?
Because, like I just said, even people from Pittsburgh were like, why would you want to go to Pittsburgh?
Pittsburgh's
But-
great.
Yeah, we approve.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you for doing this little mini discussion about our trip.
Sure.
Don't forget, I'll post a couple pictures on Instagram, but I'm gonna do a photo dump on the Patreon. So patreon.com/witchfinder, and of course spookyas.com will take you to the show's website where you can listen to almost each and every episode, including the ones no longer available on your favorite streaming service. And you can find links to the social media, including Facebook, which is facebook.com/spookytimes with Eric D. You can join the Spookaroos, our secret cult society for the true blue spookaroos that want to do deep dives and deep discussions on each episode but don't want the weight of public judgment upon them. And you can also find us on Instagram at spookyassshit. And, of course, everything all ties together because it's Witchfinder Productions. It's the new branding. So it all ties together. Witchfinder Productions supports the Witchfinder, supports the podcast, supports the YouTube videos for both of those things, and you can support it all if you join the Patreon. Fatima,
Yes.
thank you for being my road trip buddy
No problem.
and for tolerating the random spooky stuff that I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
I
me.
know it's like one of your least favorite things to do.
That is not true. It's not the least favorite.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm glad you were here, and I'm sure a lot of people are glad you're here because you got fans out there. I know you don't believe it, but you have fans.
Well, I
Whenever I
appreciate
ask
that.
people who they like as guest co-hosts, your name comes up.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very
So-
sweet. Thank you.
The Spookaroos enjoy your company.
Well, thank you.
All right.
Spookaroos.
Well, thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Emma the Cat. And until next time, don't be afraid.
It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside. And when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that we're friends.
Spooky Times is a Witchfinder production.